The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the first in a series of webinar segments that we'll be hosting here at PTG Logistics. Today we're going to learn the basics of delivering like a rock star and discuss what a day in the life of a contractor looks like. My name is Stephen Mullen, and I'll be your moderator for today's call. Please note that currently everyone in attendance is set to mute, but we will be sending out a couple of poll questions during the call, and we'd love to have you post a question in the slide-out toolbar area just to the right of your screen. We'll do our best to answer questions in a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. That said, we have as our speaker Mr. Jim Harris. Jim is currently the Vice President of Operations at PTG Logistics and has been in the logistics industry for over 25 years. Over the past 15 years, he's narrowed his focus on industry-leading third-party logistics companies with clients such as Sears, Home Depot, GE, JCPenney's, and Ashley Furniture, to name a few. His expertise in operations has a concentration on recruiting, optimizing quality, customer satisfaction, and cultivating client relationships. Without further ado, Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Stephen, and hello everyone, and thank you for joining me today as we look at this segment of how to deliver like a rock star. During this presentation, we will be reviewing the contract carrier model and specifically looking into the areas of a contractor's profile, who are these people and what makes them successful, the progression path, where do these people come from, contractor requirements, what's required to be a contractor, business support programs, what type of programs are they? We'll look at a day in the life of a contractor, some aspects of what a typical day looks like, and lastly, we'll look at business management, how they manage their business. The profile of a contractor. As we begin to review the material, please keep in mind that there are two types of choices in delivery today, employee base and contractor base. Like picking your favorite music, one isn't necessarily better than the other, but comes with different beats. While there are similarities between the two, like instruments are to different genres of music, we're focusing on the IC model and attempting to get the sense of the who, what, and where of these types of people. A look backstage, if you will. So who are these people? Very few are college grads. While there has been a handful of college graduates working within the business, it's usually a short tenure until they move back into their educated field. While individuals with trade experience are technically adept to doing this business, it's not something that most went to trade school to learn. While ex-military personnel are more than capable of performing the job, more often it's the military-minded that are leaving the service and primarily are just in the need of any job and are usually a little reluctant to start at the bottom of the learning curve, which is a helper, and learn the intricacies of the business. They usually don't want to start out making $100 per day. So most successful candidates are high school graduates. While the minimum driving age in this business is 18, you need to be 21 years of old to drive across state lines as a truck driver and for obtaining a commercial license. These are licenses that allow an operation of any type of vehicle which has a gross weighting of 26,001 pounds or more. Most contractors are males over the age of 25. Between the ages of 18 and 25, this time span has proven to be a better learning period and allows those interested to learn the ropes as a helper, graduating up to a driver, and then to take the leap into the contractor world. So what makes a successful driver, contractor? Like having a good voice to start, in our business, these are their vocal cords. Being outgoing, personable, and friendly. Nobody likes to get a delivery from a team that just seems unhappy, shy, or just plain doesn't like talking to customers. Having extremely good communication skills. Not only does a contractor need to understand what is being communicated, they need to over-communicate at times. In today's markets, with add-on values of communicating clients' expectations, product explanations, delivery and return results, and survey solicitations, the better one is in this field, the easier it is proven to be on the entire supply chain. Being self-driven and motivated. Having this inner desire leads to not only running a successful business, but usually provides a platform for perfectionists. It's these types that want to do the best they can for themselves, for us, and for our customers. Being physically fit. Understanding the physical demands of this profession and being in shape helps conquer the long hours and the heavy lifting required to perform in this profession. Being clean, neat, and professional. Nobody wants a scary contractor delivering into their home. We know that approximately 95% of who we deliver to are women, who are usually home alone. And having the discipline to be in uniform and looking as neat as possible goes a long way in winning the trust during this first impression period and through the entire delivery experience. Most great contractors understand this and understand that we are the last impression of our clients and that their personal appearance is one step in being professional. After this, it's their respect for the customer's property, their time, and these are the things that the customers value most. Technical skills. With today's type of deliveries being appliances, furniture, treadmills, exercise equipment, electronics, tractors, etc., the more a contractor already possesses in technical skills, the more he not only displays confidence in the customer's home, but saves delivery time and minimizes delays. This experience is invaluable when connecting appliances to plumbing or gas, or simply installing an over-the-range microwave or putting together an elliptical. In this business, time is one of the most important aspects of a contractor's day. So in summary, a rock star can come from anywhere. So while we've shown that a contractor can come from literally anywhere, we've touched on some of the consistent and common traits those have that are very successful in this business. Now let's pause for a moment while we conduct our first poll question. Stephen?
All right, thank you. On your screen, in just a moment, you should see the first question, which is, what's the minimum driving age to apply for a CDL? Is it 16, 18, 21, or 25? Please take a minute and click on the answer that you think is correct. All right, thank you very much. Jim, you want to take it back?
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. All right, let's look at the progression path. What's the right way? Cultivating a driver to a helper to a contractor can take a minimum of 1 to 3 years, depending on the age one starts in this business, and can cost thousands of dollars. But we know that this is usually the best and most successful route. We know that there's not a huge demand at getting into this business anymore, and that most of our success comes organically. This allows the developer time to teach the inner workings of the business and allows the driver to see firsthand that driving the truck isn't running the business. But this time and insight allows the trainee to show the desire to learn more and the trainer to see and monitor their progression. This is no different than a singer singing in every bar and lounge that they can to gain more experience. Our helpers and drivers need delivery experience. But with the right mentoring and cultivation from the contractor and the right support from local management, including client influences, this is the most successful path. The other way. Why do we believe in this path? Because nobody wants a one-hit wonder. Does anybody remember one-hit wonders? Does anybody remember Vanilla Ice? Without this path, This leads to higher contractor turnover, higher recruiting dollars, and puts a burden on another contractor to cover loads, and just isn't fun for anyone. So what's required to become a contractor? Let's look at some startup requirements and costs. In this slide, we're going to break this down into 4 categories. These are the categories we've determined to be startup costs related to this career. First category is requirements. In today's age, it's becoming harder and harder to find individuals with a clean background. Most criteria today request background searches go back a minimum of 7 years, while others are 10 years, and in others' view, go back a lifetime. We all might remember something we did a long time ago that we aren't very proud of. In this business, those mistakes can exempt you from becoming a contractor. Believe it or not, this is a pass-fail part of the qualification process. Either you can move forward or you can't. Our backgrounds consist of misdemeanor and felony checks related to any crimes of violence and dishonesty. These background checks can run anywhere from $50 to $100 per person. If you're fortunate enough to move to the next round and pass the background and drug testing phase, you're looking at an average cost of around $700 to set up the administrative end of the business. This includes incorporating, getting all applicable DOT permits, whether interstate or intrastate, local operating authorities, federal employee identification number, and any related banking information. Next category is investment. The next step and expense facing a potential contractor is their truck and their equipment. Whether buying a new or used truck, whether leasing or renting, most contractors' ability today to obtain credit seems to be limited. Maybe it's a sign of economic times, maybe not. But in any event, the average cost of a down payment is in the neighborhood of around $2,500. Equipment, consisting of the average assortment of our required tool list, can run about another $1,000. Let's look at insurance. One of the variables in our business is the level of insurance required. In many cases, it varies from customer to customer, but ranges and amounts are usually the only differentiator. Coverages include obtaining a general liability minimum of $1 million to $2 million with an umbrella policy of $2 million to $4 million. In a rare exception, that umbrella policy is $9 million to $10 million. Cargo insurance minimums range from $5,000 to $250,000. And policies today usually include some sort of theft or professional bond with a minimum coverage of $10,000 to $100,000. On top of these requirements, a contractor is required to carry workman's compensation in most states with a minimum coverage of usually no less than $500,000. These type of coverages can set a contractor back anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000 a year in premiums, again, depending on requirements. Like any other transaction, a down payment is usually required here and averages around $1,500 to $2,000 down. Last category we're looking at is employees. Most traditional home delivery requires 2 persons in a truck, so finding the right helper is key. Traditional word of mouth and internal recruiting is still best, but starting from scratch is not uncommon. While word of mouth and Craigslist postings are free, training isn't. A contractor can be prepared to invest anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per person, getting them up to speed and investing in their qualification criteria, which includes uniforms and equipment. So as you can see, startup costs range anywhere from $5,500 to $7,500 per. Let's look at some business support programs specifically designed for independent contractors. As stated earlier, when you find an individual who has the desire to become a contractor, yet lacks the financial investment, what assistance can they expect? In many situations, nothing. A lot of companies don't do anything for a contractor. They need to come prepared or they can't work for it. At PTG, we look at ourselves similar to a talent scout. So once we think we found the next rock star, we want to invest in them. So we've developed a range of opportunities to assist them. From incorporation services that takes the strain out of compliance concerns, to leasing, truck leasing programs from our parent company that includes truck maintenance programs, to insurance brokers, and to the ever most important tax and accounting services. We try and make it a partnership with the contractor through corporate sponsorship that's tailored to meet each individual circumstance. With that, we're going to pause again for our second poll question. Turn it over to Stephen.
Hey, thanks, Jim. I wanted to let everybody know that the answer to the first question, what's the minimum driving age to apply for a CDL, the correct answer was 21, and we had 75% of the folks answer that one correctly. As noted, the minimum driving age to be in the business is 18, but you need to be 21 to drive across state lines and to obtain a commercial driver's license. That said, the second poll question should now be on your screen. And the question is, what's the average cost for a contractor to start his business? Is it from $1,000 to $2,500? Is it from $2,500 to $5,000? Is it $5,500 to $7,500? Or is it more than $10,000? Please take a minute. Click the answer you think is correct. All right, thank you very much. Jim, back to you.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, now we're going to look at a day in the life of a contractor. So assuming a contractor is now signed and they're ready to go, they've got all their requirements, they've got their equipment, they've got their truck, what can we expect a typical day to be like? Let's look at the hours. Typically, they can expect longer days than on a normal job. It's not an 8 to 5 job. It's not a 10-hour job and then he goes home. Most loads begin very early, typically 6 a.m. Therefore, it's not uncommon for a contractor to wake up at 5 a.m. to prepare. Days. Many operations run either a 5, 6, or 7-day operation. And while many contractors either need or want to work additional days, in some circumstances, they're even required to do so based on contractor shortages or due to volume increases. Customer interactions. While the number of stops vary, it's not uncommon to see an average of 10 to 15 different customers every day. Even when the delivery goes perfect, expectations are still that proactive communications occur, and that upon arrival, customers are greeted professionally, and the delivery ends with a thorough understanding of the product they received. It's also not uncommon that customer feedback is requested on behalf of the contractor that determines the level of delivery satisfaction they just exhibited. Some things behind the scenes. Have you ever went to a concert and simply just enjoyed the show? Well, sometimes things behind the stage, they go wrong. And in our business, while most days go without incidents, there are days where things just happen. A contractor needs to be able to deal with these issues and be prepared to minimize the impact to their scheduled customers. Examples. What happens when a helper doesn't show? They need to find another one. What happens when their truck doesn't start? They need to go rent one. Or what happens when it's raining? They need to deliver in the rain. These are all things that impact a typical day in the life of a contractor. Most days include an information stand-up meeting. A good contractor never wants to miss these. Usually, the prior day's survey scores are already posted, and the contractor has had an opportunity to see what his contribution was. It's during these sessions that our local managers have about 15 minutes or so to capture their attention, review necessary information relative to yesterday and today's activities, and ensure that the teams are in uniform and have their necessary supplies and begin their day to pump them up. One of the most important aspects of our stand-up meetings is to excite the team and get them ready to head out on the road. We want contractors to leave the dock excited about their deliveries so that our customers feel excited too. Communication is key in assisting towards a contractor having a good day. The more relative information that is proactively communicated, the better. Occasionally, the customer isn't home, and the contractor is requested to go back. A good contractor wants to do these. While sometimes it's not practical to go back, when they can, and they do, it's a home run. Another lasting impression on the customer. In this area, we're going to look at managing the business. How many times have you heard in the news that so-and-so either owes the IRS millions of dollars or is in jail for not paying or is just broke and you can't believe they're broke, they made so much money? We've hopefully demonstrated that the complexity and financial responsibility needed to just run this type of business. If a contractor takes care of the operational end of their business and receives good surveys, yet takes their eye off of the financial end, their business is set up for failure. Knowing how important this is and how important it is to file taxes suggested quarterly, PTG has teamed with experts to assist our contractors in financial planning and in finding ways to save them money. So what else can we do? What else has been done? We've worked hard to leverage fuel rates as an example by maximizing our purchasing power and extending these discounts to our contractors. We've worked even harder in developing the best leasing programs that are company sponsored so that everyone can qualify and get into either a new or used vehicle. Lastly, our assistance programs. These are geared towards customization so that whatever level of readiness a contractor may be at, we can work with them and we can set them on the path to deliver like a rock star. So we're going to pause now for our final poll question, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Steve.
Thanks, Jim. I wanted to go back to the previous question. Another 75% got this one right. The question again was, what's the average cost for a contractor to start his business? The correct answer was between $5,500 and $7,500, and again, that's a combination of administrative costs, truck and equipment costs, and insurance. That said, let me go ahead and launch the last question, which is a true or false question. So true or false, as an independent contractor, it's not necessary to file taxes. Please take a minute, put in your answer, and hit the submit button. All right, thank you very much. Jim?
Okay, thanks, Stephen. All right, so we're going to summarize here. In this webinar, we looked at a few things. We looked at contractor's profile, discussed what types of people usually become the best contractors, and what attributes make them the most successful. We next looked at the progression path. What's the best path to get contractors? And what's the best path that leads to finding and recruiting the best contractors? Next, we looked at their requirements, including background checks, drug testing, DOT physicals, insurance requirements, and lastly, employee relations. We even associated startup costs to these areas. Next, we looked briefly at a typical day in the life of a contractor and discussed the hours and days typically associated in this business. Next, we discuss some barriers they might face and the many hats they wear during the course of a day to overcome these. Finally, we looked at some of the programs available that PTG has implemented to support them. And they were incorporation services, lease-to-own programs, truck maintenance programs, and insurance and accounting services. With that, this concludes my portion of the presentation. I will now turn it back over to our moderator, Stephen Mullen.
All right, thanks, Jim. Just wanted to recap on that third poll question. 100% of folks got that one right. The answer is false. You, of course, have to submit your taxes as an independent contractor and or pretty much any other walking human being. So I guess at this point we'd like to address some questions that were submitted during the presentation. So Jim, I'll just kind of read these to you, and you can take as much time as you'd like to answer them, and then just let me know when you want to move on to the next one. The first one was, how long does it take to become an independent contractor?
Okay, good question. Well, depending on the background period, that's usually what extends this process, depending on how many counties somebody's lived in or how far back somebody needs to be searched. That's really the only thing that varies. But if it's just the standard, the guy's lived in, one state, one county for, let's say, the past 10 years, the average time shouldn't take more than 2 to 3 weeks. That includes, getting the drug test results back, which 2-3 days nowadays. Physicals are done in 1 day, and then it's usually that background is simmering while you're working on all the other DOT requirements in the contractor's package.
Okay. The second question we got in was, how much money does a typical contractor earn a year?
That's always the first question a potential contractor asks. So I'm not surprised that that this one's out there. What's more important than what a contractor earns is what a contractor takes home. So we know that he needs to be able to cover all of his expenses, his truck payment, truck insurance, his labor, his taxes, his fuel, his communications, uniforms, all that good stuff. So that can range. That can range too, depending on the number of stops they do or the miles they drive. But it varies. It's probably anywhere from $105,000 to $125,000 is the gross, and the net is anywhere from $42,000 to $52,000, and that's usually the ballparks for those two numbers.
Okay. One more question. Looks like we saved the best for last. It says, why aren't there more women in this line of work?
Okay, yeah, that's a really good question there. I really don't know. Maybe they're smart enough to stay out of it. Women can really make the best decisions. I will tell you, though, honestly, it may be a physicality thing. This is a very hard physical job. Not to say that women couldn't do it, because I have seen women in this business, and they've been the most successful part of the contractor business that I've seen. And I think a lot of that is because they relate to that 95% of who we're delivering for better. And you team them up. The best team I've ever seen was a husband and wife team in Seattle. And she ran the door, related to the customer, complimented her on every purchase and everything in her house, and the husband did the driving and the heavy lifting, and this team was just unstoppable. So I'd like to see more of them in the business, quite frankly.
Okay, great. Well, that was our last question, and that concludes our webinar for today. Jim and I want to thank everyone for attending. We appreciate you giving us some of your time, and we look forward to seeing you back for future webinars as we continue exploring elements of delivering like a rock star.
Thank you, everybody.